Hello and welcome to RV Advisors All Things RV Podcast. I am your host, 𝗀𝗄𝗏. I've been enjoying the RV lifestyle for 5 years and I love helping new RVers realize their RV dreams. This podcast is about RV education, resources, adventures, and the amazing people who love RVing. It is also about discovering the freedom RVers experience, the connection with nature we are all so grateful for, and how RVing enriches our lives. On this podcast, you can expect us to talk about all things RV, including the good stuff, the challenging stuff, and everything in between. So, join us weekly and enjoy the lineup of guests we have in store for you. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. If you're new here, a special welcome to you. If you are a returning listener, thanks for joining us today. Today I have a guest that I'm excited to introduce. I'd like to give a big welcome to my friend John Roberts. I met John and his wife Linda and their dogs a few years ago. They are full-time RVers and are currently stationary in their fifth wheel, but they bought, I think around last year, a travel trailer that they're doing their traveling in now. And John is retired from cyber, where he was a software engineer, and now he owns his own business, Ecoclean RV Tank Service. And I think I'm really excited to have him on because I think a lot of people don't have all the information on the best way to take care of your tanks and the importance of having them professionally cleaned. And he's got all kinds of great information. So, John, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you coming on today.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think, like you said, I think a lot of people are just not aware that this service even exists. I find a lot of times, and people see my website or my sign or something, and I first talk to them, they say, I had no idea that this was even a thing you could do. And a lot of my business is education and trying to help people learn how their tanks work and how to keep them clean and how to avoid the terrible smells and things like that. So
that's important.
Yeah.
To start off, tell us a little bit, because you're full-time. Tell us a little bit about your RV life and the different ways you've traveled and how long you've RV'd and what was your life before becoming an RV.
Yeah. Well, we used to live up in the mountains in the Sierras. We had 6 Malamutes. We did a little bit of mushing, that sort of thing, and we did a lot of dog shows. So we got a 40-foot Monaco diesel pusher, and we went to a lot of dog shows. And we used it for a lot of things, but finally in 2011, we decided to start full timing. So we got rid of the house, took off in our motorhome, towing our Jeep behind it. And we actually, we had the little map on the side of the slide out with the map of the states. And we did all the lower 48 states.
Wow.
We pretty much went everywhere. We did a lot of visiting family and friends and old Air Force buddies. And we just had a wonderful time, a lot of national parks. So we did that up until 2019, actually the end of 2019. So what's that? 8 or 9 years, I guess, full timing.
With the 6 Malamutes.
Well, no. By the time we started full timing, we were down to 2. We had 6 at one time, but down to 2 when we were traveling. Made it a little easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we still had, a couch missing with big crates for our dogs instead of a couch. So, yeah. Anyway, so then we decided we were going to stay put a little bit, helping out our grandkids and all. And they live nearby in Folsom. We're in California, in Plymouth. We live in a very nice RV resort. It's actually one where Kathy used to live. And that's where we actually met her. So we got the big fifth wheel with 2 bathrooms and washer dryer, all the conveniences. But it's a big rig, and I didn't want to pull it around we had it for maybe a couple of months and we looked at each other and said, oh my God, we can't travel anymore. This is too big. So we had to buy a travel trailer. So now we have a little imagined travel trailer, and we use that to do our traveling and go to rallies and that sort of thing. So we're not really traveling all over the country anymore, but we
But you
still get
did,
out.
you already did that, yeah.
Yeah, we still get out and camp and all that sort of thing. One thing we really miss when we were full timing, if we decided to go somewhere, we just pull in the slides and go. And
Yeah,
now we actually have to pack. It's like
yeah, yeah.
I couldn't remember how to, God, I can't remember all the things we need to take. What a hassle. Yeah.
So tell me this, with your Imagine, with your Grand Design, do you have it stocked and everything duplicate?
Um,
Dishes and
yes,
towels and sheets and all that? So you
yeah,
don't have
those sort of things we leave in there. Yeah.
yeah. So
We usually just have to load clothes and food and stuff.
like back in the old days when we lived in our house and I'd pick it up at storage and we would do that.
Right.
Now it just takes us a whole day to I feel
Yeah,
like
I know.
oh,
Yeah, we always pick it up the day before we go anywhere. And
yeah. And now I unpack instead of packing, I unpack stuff to leave
so you can leave.
to lighten the load and to yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Different experience for sure.
it is. Yeah.
So tell us about your Ecoclean tank cleaning service and the methodology and the
Okay.
all the what's, whys, and how around
Well,
tanks.
it was when we were still full timing. I think we were in North Carolina, and we had some terrible smells. And I go, there's got to be a way to clean the tank to get rid of all that. I know there's just a lot of gunk in there that is causing this, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. And I Googled everything I could find, and I finally found someone who offered the service of cleaning the tanks. And it was actually someone who had kind of pioneered the whole process, and he was signing up dealers. And myself being semi-retired, thought, hey, this is something maybe I could do. And I got involved in it and got the training and became a dealer for this guy. That was called All Pro Water Flow. He was based in Texas at that point, I think.
Uh-huh.
So he had several dealers around the country. He has since retired, so that kind of network of national dealers is no more. I didn't realize, like I said, that there was even such a thing available. But basically, what it is it's pressure washing the inside of your tank. If you
Mhm.
can imagine just being able to go inside the tank and spray everything off with high pressure hydrojetting, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We use a 1/8 inch hose, a special connection at your sewer outlet, so we never have to go inside.
Mhm.
Um, and we go up inside the tank with that little hose, running about 2,500, 2,600 psi, and
Wow.
it goes inside the tank and just blasts everything out of there. So all the stuff, usually the reason your gauges will stop working, they always say one
Yeah.
third, two-thirds full, even when it's empty, is
Yeah.
because there's all that buildup on the side of the tank. And those sensors are reading that as being full of a liquid when actually it's just gunk built up on the side of the tank.
Wow.
So I would say 99% of the time after I clean the tank, the gauges will read correctly again. Sometimes it could be something else electrical or something else like that, but I almost always we get it working again so that they'll say empty when the tank is empty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the basic methodology.
And do you do the gray ones also or just
Yeah,
the
yeah, we do the black and the gray. Actually, especially if you have a separate galley tank, the
Mhm.
gray can be
Yeah.
a lot worse than the black.
Yeah.
The other thing is the black tank in many rigs has a black tank flush. So when you're emptying on a regular basis, you can at least rinse it. It doesn't do the same job that high pressure hydrojetting does, but it does rinse it out pretty good.
Yeah.
So the gray tank on most rigs does not have that available. So sometimes the gray can be pretty yucky as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and we do the black and the gray. We also work on water heaters,
Mm-hmm.
the flush and changing the anode rod and that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
those are the two services we offer.
And so the anode rod, tell us a little bit about that, what it does, and why it's important to change it out every year.
Okay, so the water heater, I was trying to avoid saying hot water heater because it's actually a cold water heater. It's
Yeah.
heating cold water.
Right.
Anyway, the water heater, sometimes if you have a tank, now if you have a tankless heater, that's another issue. So a water heater, basically, it's going to have a steel tank or an aluminum tank. If it's an aluminum tank, you can tell by looking at the outside of it, the cap where you drain the tank it looks like plastic. It's actually nylon, but it looks like a plastic cap. If you see a metal cap there where you would drain it, that means you have a steel tank and it has an anode rod.
Mhm.
So the whole purpose of an anode rod is to sacrifice itself so your tank won't decay. Now, the aluminum won't decay like that, but the steel one will. So this anode rod is made mostly of magnesium, which is a softer metal, and it will decay before the steel tank does.
Mhm.
So its whole purpose to be in there is so that it can decay.
Yeah.
So you need to flush everything out of there once a year and check that anode rod and make sure that there's still something left of it. So,
Yeah.
because if it gets used up, then your tank will start to decay, and
Mhm.
eventually you'll, you know, get a hole in it and it won't work anymore.
Yeah.
So that's a very important thing to do on an annual basis.
Mhm.
We recommend you clean your holding tanks and flush and service your water heater once a year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I wonder in the walkthroughs, when you buy a rig, if they talk about that anode rod. I don't know because we bought from a private
I
party.
probably don't. It would be something if you took it in for an annual service, if the water heater is included in your service, they'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They may not tell you the details of it,
Yeah.
but basically that's what they're doing. You drain everything out and rinse all that stuff out. You'll see a lot of times if you watch when you rinse it out, a bunch of white crystals and flakes and sand that come out. And
Yeah.
that's all the calcium and stuff that builds up, the minerals that build up in the tank.
Yeah.
And it's important to get all those out of there at least once a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even if you have an aluminum tank and no anode rod, it's still important to flush it at least once a year.
Yeah. I was surprised when we changed our anode rod not too long ago that it wasn't too bad because there's a lot of minerals in the water here.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was surprised. I thought it was going to be down to a little tiny thing, but it wasn't. I mean, we still went ahead and replaced it, but
Oh, that's good.
yeah.
And did you have a lot of buildup when you flushed it out?
Good question. I wasn't there when Mark flushed it out.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's amazing. I've had ones where it won't even drain because there's so much gunk in it.
Wow.
You got to poke it and pull all that stuff out. It's so bad. So
Yeah.
ones that have been gone for, 5, 6 years without doing them.
The tank pulls. I know some people leave them open. I know for sure the black tank, that's a big no-no. You want
Yes.
to keep the
Never, ever leave the black tank open
yeah.
because you will get what we call the proverbial poop pyramid.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, it's not like a regular house where the pipes go directly into the plumbing. The pipe just goes down into a big tank, and it's a holding tank. It's not a septic tank. It's
Yeah.
just to hold everything until you can dump it out and get rid of it. So if you leave the tank open, there's no liquid in there.
Yeah.
So when solids come in, they just start piling up.
Yeah.
And eventually it will reach the top where the toilet is and block your toilet. And then you have a real clog. So
Yeah. So using lots of water when you flush for number 2 is key as well.
yes,
Right? And a toilet with single ply toilet paper that dissolves
some
easily.
you say 2-ply is okay.
It is a
Anything 2-ply or less will work because basically your RV paper is 1-ply.
mhm.
And we all know you're going to have to at least double it before you use it.
Yeah.
So then it's 2-ply.
Yeah.
So 2-ply or less should break down easily. I mean,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be a problem, depending on what chemicals you use, and you should use some chemicals.
Mhm.
I say anything that's 2-ply is fine, but never buy anything with a bear on it, if you know what I mean. You don't want the big plushy
Yeah.
stuff, but 2-ply is fine.
Yeah. Okay. And then when you talk about what to put, what do you recommend? I know there's that recipe you gave us.
Yeah, I have a recipe that I like. So it's a combination of pine sol and calgon bath beads. And you mix it up in a gallon jug and just use 1 cup in the black tank with each tank.
Mhm.
So the pine sol will break down the solids really well and
Mhm.
help with the odors. The bath beads keep it nice and slippery, and they will actually lubricate your seals. They'll lubricate the seals on the valves. If you pour it in your toilet before you add the water, it'll
Uh-huh.
lubricate the seal on your toilet.
Oh, okay.
So it's a really good mixture. It's a lot cheaper than chemicals,
Yeah.
and I think it works a lot better.
Yeah.
So my recipe's on the back of my business card. I realize it's not on my website, but you can certainly email me and ask for the recipe. It's
Okay.
very simple. I'll tell you very quickly that if you try it, make sure you get a sturdy gallon jug with a screw top, because you're going to add water and pine sol equal parts and then put in the beads. And when you put the beads in, it will foam up like a volcano. So I always put it in a sink.
Mhm.
I add the pine sol in the water, and then I put the beads in very quickly and screw the top on, and then let it sit there about 15 minutes. It'll kind of puff up a little bit while it's foaming, and then it'll settle down and you can mix it together.
You know what I started doing? I reversed your recipe. I
You
put the
put the
bath
beads in?
beads in first,
Yeah,
and then
I've
I
heard that.
mixed half water, like a 2-cup thing, a cup of water, half a cup of
That
water,
works. Yeah.
and the pine salt, and pour it in slowly. Uh,
Okay. You have to do it
I
slowly.
have to do it slowly, but you never really get that because I feel
Oh,
like,
that's good.
am I losing all the good stuff when that happens? I don't know. Anyway, I started doing it opposite, and it worked.
Okay. Well, that as long as you get it mixed together, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Um, I think I've tried that and it didn't work for me, but
No.
I don't know.
It's a slow. I do it slow. To make
Yeah, I don't have the patience.
uh,
That's
but
all.
yeah, I've put that in the gray tanks too.
Yes, it's good in the gray tanks. You don't need a full cup in most gray tanks. A half cup will be fine, but
Uh-huh.
especially in a galley tank,
Yeah.
it can help kill all the mold and stuff that'll start growing in there.
Yeah.
So it's very good for the gray as well.
Okay, so what's your thought about leaving gray tank? Of course, if you're hooked to sewer,
Well, the
leaving the
official
gray tank.
word is you're not supposed to leave them open.
Yeah.
They were designed to be closed and emptied.
Yeah.
So yes, that's ideal, but for some of us, it doesn't really work practically.
Mhm.
If you have a washing machine, it can be a problem because there's a lot of water going out. You're
Yeah.
taking a lot of showers. Um, it's okay to leave it open when you're doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, if you leave it open, the only real downside, I think, is that it does leave it open to the sewer so
Yeah.
creatures can crawl up. I've never had that happen myself,
Yeah.
but it's possible.
Yeah.
If you leave them open, I always say, when you get ready to dump the black, close the gray as well. Get a shower or something to get some water in there, and then do your regular dump where you dump the black first and then the gray to rinse out your hose and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's best to leave them closed, but I
We
leave them.
usually leave closed. We usually leave them closed.
Yeah.
So what about wintertime when it's very, very cold? There again, should you leave them open so they drain?
Well, living in California, I don't have that
You don't
issue.
ever have to worry about that.
But yes, that could be a problem. So yeah, I would say leave them closed, especially if you have a bay where it's heated and insulated. That's much better to leave them closed for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Questions. I know, some people leave them open.
Yeah.
I've always wondered about that critter thing. It's like, I don't well, and what if the sewer backed up? Then it's gonna back up into your
Well, yeah, that would be unusual, but yeah, I suppose that could be an issue.
I
One of
like
the
I
things,
like that recipe you gave us. We do use that.
yeah, I think it's really great.
Uh,
Um,
But, I will say the only place I have found Calgon bath beads is on Amazon.
yeah, I buy them on Amazon. I've had people tell me they find them at Walmart, but they're not where you would expect to find them. One thing on water heaters, I know a lot of rigs come with a tankless water heater now,
Yes.
and you don't have the issue of an anode rot or having to flush it, but it does need maintenance, I guess, at least once a year. It needs to be descaled. And
Mm,
that's a lengthy process where you have to use a bucket and get a solution in there. And
mhm.
it's not something that I would have time to accomplish. So it's not a service I don't think I'll be able to offer, but it is something to keep in mind that you need to do once a year if you
Yeah,
have a tankless water heater. It
yeah,
needs to be descaled.
yeah. That makes sense. That's good to know. So how long ever since I've known you, you've had Ecoclean? How many years altogether?
I started in January of 2000. So no, sorry, 2020. I added 20 years on there accidentally. 2020, I'm sorry. So about 5 years, coming up on 5 years, I've been doing this.
It's great because 'cause you're at the resort. You have a built-in business there, which is
Yeah, so living in the RV resort, I get a lot of business here. I service the entire Sacramento area.
uh,
If you're familiar with that area, I go down as far as Lodi, up as far as Auburn, to Auburn, but not into Auburn, and
mhm.
over to Vallejo. So
Oh,
that's basically the area that I service. Um, I do have somebody that I can recommend if you don't live in this area or if you're not going to be traveling through this area.
mhm.
Um, and that is tank rangers.
Thank you so much for tuning in today to RV Advisors, All Things RV Podcast. Please join us again next week for more RV education, resources, adventures, and interesting people. Until then, wishing you amazing adventures, safe travels, and I hope to see you on the road. Okay.
Tank Rangers is more of a national company. They do franchises, so they have franchises all over the country. And if you go to their website and tell them where you are, then they'll get somebody in touch with you.
Okay.
They do basically the exact same thing that I do. They're good people. I know the guy who owns the whole thing, and he kind of started out the same way I did. We talk quite often,
Mhm.
and we both have education as part of our
Yeah,
mantra.
which
And
is great. Yeah.
yeah, so if you're looking for somebody and you're not in my area, I would check out Tank Rangers. Gabe
Okay.
Munoz, good guy.
So I'll include all John's information and Tank Rangers in the show notes. So anybody, their websites and all that, if you want to get a hold of them, that information will be down in the notes. So you also go to RV rallies.
Yes, yeah, I've done several rallies. The ones that I've done are all Grand Design rallies. I happen to have a Grand Design Imagine trailer.
Uh-huh.
And I actually, the first one I got started in, they held the rally here at the 49er RV
Mhm.
resort where I
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I got started. Then they invited me to the Northern California rally. The guy who trained me does a rally in Colorado every year,
Uh-huh.
and his family reunion happened to fall in the same week as the rally. So he asked me to cover that for him, and I've done that for a couple of years.
Hmm.
Um, but rallies are fun. They
Yeah.
have a lot of vendors, and besides tank cleaner,
Uh-huh.
and they're a blast. They're just a good way to meet like-minded people that have the same kinds of rigs. And
Mhm.
at least at the grand design rallies, they have I forget what they call it, the something response crew. I can't remember what the real term was, but it's basically a huge trailer that has everything you could possibly need to work on grand design RVs, and
Wow.
they do all the recall work and anything. We were at a rally once and a guy limped in with a broken not the axle. I think the axle was bent and the whatever the spring that attaches the axle to the trailer was broken. And they
You
just
joined
came
they
over
on there?
immediately and replaced all of that for him. No
Yeah.
charge. They're really great people.
At that rally at 49er, they had several guys with the trucks
Yeah,
and big
yeah,
trailers.
yeah. They're really great, and their whole thing is they don't get paid. If they're traveling from one place to another and they see any kind of a rig, any brand that's broken down on the side of the road, they're required to stop and help them. And just the rally itself, they usually have dinners, potlucks, dancing, bands. I mean, all sorts of things, and educational seminars. I always
Mhm,
do a seminar similar to what we're doing right now, just explaining what I do, and
mhm,
it's uh it's a lot of fun.
yeah. We went to the outdoors RV rally for the first time this year in Oregon, and they had a tank cleaning guy there too.
Oh, okay.
We'd had ours done. Um, but I'm hoping to run into you guys at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't do that many rallies. Most of the ones I do are here in Northern California. I did that one in Colorado for, my friend, my buddy, but yeah, we'll see.
So, yeah, that was a lot of fun to do. It's fun to go to the rallies for people who are
Yeah,
new to RVing. Basically, most brands have get-togethers, like annual get-togethers and in different locations and, you know, all these people gathering with the same rig and
yeah,
a lot of fun. It's a lot of
it
fun.
is. Yeah, it's a blast.
Anything else you have to share?
I don't think so. Well, I know one thing that people are usually interested at my seminars that I do. It's something called struvite. Do you know what struvite is?
No, I don't.
Uh, it's a crystal that forms usually in the black tank. It's it's formed from a combination of ammonia, phosphates, and other chemicals that happen to be in a black tank. They react together and form crystals, and
Oh,
they can eventually. They're they're just like cement.
hmm.
I've cleaned tanks where usually they'll come out in chunks that are kind of round where they formed along the pipes,
Mhm.
and they're really hard to get out. But
Yeah.
it's something that you can experience if you've noticed that you're draining your tanks and they're empty, but the water doesn't flow out like it used to. Usually you'll get a big rush of water. If
Mhm.
it's coming out very slowly, then it could be some struvite buildup.
Hmm.
A little more common in the Southwest where the water's really hard. They seem to have the chemicals that will form that more often. But I've seen it here in Sacramento even. Uh,
Really?
yeah, I had one rig that it just had so much I couldn't get it. That's the only one that I've ever had that I could not free up with my high pressure hydrojetting. It was so much, it was just like totally blocked,
Yeah.
solid. It's like somebody had poured cement in their pipes. It was
Mhm.
terrible.
That's the other thing. I guess for people who store their rig for the winter, it's a good idea probably to have the tanks cleaned before they do that, huh?
Yeah, it is good.
Yeah.
And if you're in a place where you have to winterize, then you can't do it. But I would say basically, normally when you store your rig, you should leave some liquid in there,
Mhm.
some
Yeah.
of my solution or something else to lubricate the valves. Because
Yeah.
if you leave it dry, the valves will dry out and crack. Yeah, so I would say that the regular routine you should go through when you dump your tanks is you're going to dump the black first. And one thing to remember is you should dump the black when it's at least 2/3 full or more. When it's completely full, it will dump more completely. If you dump it when it's only about a third full, then it just, the water just basically falls right out. If it's at least 2/3 full or full, you'll get a little bit of a vortex going, and it'll get almost all those solids and everything moving and get them more out more fully than they are when it's not full. So that's important. If you're done camping and it's only a third full, then just add a bunch of water to get it up to at least 2/3, and it'll dump a whole lot better for you.
Yeah, or if you have a tank flush.
Yeah, now if you have a tank flush, that's even better. You would dump it, and I know a lot of people like to use the tank flush to fill the tanks and empty them, sometimes 2 or 3 times. I don't think that's necessary. I think it's kind of overkill. It's not that it hurts anything, but generally what you should do is dump the tank till it's completely out, and then hook up your black tank flush, turn it on, and ideally you have a clear piece on the outside so you can see what's coming out, and let it run until everything comes out clear.
Yeah.
That's really all you need to do. If you want to use your black tank flush and you close the tank with the flush on, and it'll fill the tank.
Set a timer, set a timer.
But if you're like me, you're going to get distracted and doing something else, and it's going to overflow your toilet.
Yeah.
So that's not something I recommend, but if you do, be very, very careful. Make sure that you either use a meter on the hose so you know how much you're putting in there, or set a timer like Kathy said. But basically, if you
right there, so you can.
if you turn it on and you're waiting till it comes out clear, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
So, and then of course you would close that, open the gray and dump that. And then before you use the black, you want to add 3-4 gallons of water minimum to get a layer of liquid on the bottom of the tank, so that when solids come into the tank, there's something to absorb it.
Yeah.
So you would add your 3 or 4 gallons of water and whatever chemicals you're using. So, and then, repeat the process.
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing up tank rangers too for people who are not in the Sacramento area.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
have listeners from all over, so it'll be good to have another resource. But I really appreciate you coming on and educating people on how to take care of their tanks and the importance of having them cleaned on a regular basis.
You bet.
Really appreciate that. I will make sure that all of John's information and tank rangers is in the show notes. And remember, once a year, it's a good idea to get your tanks cleaned.
Yep.
Add that to your list of regular maintenance.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us today, John. And I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for all the information.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in today to RV Advisors, All Things RV Podcast. Please join us again next week for more RV education, resources, adventures, and interesting people. Until then, wishing you amazing adventures, safe travels, and I hope to see you on the road.